think the hardest part of casting is having to look an actor directly in the eye and say, okay, now will you do this for pizza? Welcome to Indie Film Podcast. I'm Victoria.
And I am Chuck. We spent the past week composing music, and as of right now, our no-budget musical is due in 18 days.
So if you're listening to this episode on the day that it drops, we are likely heads down, fueled entirely by caffeine, and trying desperately to figure out how to animate game worlds with, no animation experience.
We're going to take you behind the scenes today to share what we've done the last week for pre-production, which included obviously the compositions, as well as casting and some other odds and ends in art department.
And of course, we'll be sharing some hacks that we're leveraging for your next zero-budget indie film project, especially one that might be due on a tight timeline.
Yes.
So, Chuck, how has composing the score for a 10-minute musical in 1 week gone for you?
It's actually gone fairly smoothly, and the reason for that is that it's not totally finished yet.
Yeah, I feel like you need to knock on wood after saying that.
Yeah, I don't want to because it's bad for podcast audio. So, plus I don't think we have any wood anywhere nearby.
Not wood. This is
plastic
not.
table.
Oh wait, no, behind the wall.
Behind the wall.
There
I guess
go.
the sound deadened wall there. I'll knock on that.
There we go.
Hopefully I'm not jinxed any longer. But I think I shared a little bit last week on how we're going to be recording a musical in such a tight timetable because we want the music to sound as good as possible.
Yeah.
However, basically we got the lyrics finished a week ago.
Yes.
It was a little bit longer than a week ago because the last episode I played just a recording of me singing, playing my guitar.
Yes.
What I did, so any of you out there that are interested in doing musicals or even music videos, what I did was I created a click track with MIDI piano music, right? So you can use any instrument to play along with a click track, separate that out, and then I have my vocals separated out into a separate track as well. And I'm just singing the melody and the rhythm for each song. And so we sent those out to the actors as of yesterday.
Yes.
So that they can learn them. We're going to be filming on Saturday.
So,
and
5 days from now.
We're going to be filming in 5 days. And in 4 days, we're going to have the actors come in and sing their parts.
Yes.
And therefore replace my vocals. And hopefully that means that we can use their own recordings. And that's going to be our rehearsal time for the music too, unfortunately, because this is a very quick turnaround.
All in one.
Yes.
In one.
So if you haven't done a music video before, or you haven't worked with recorded music on set, you want to make sure that you have the final time down. It's easy on a music track, for a music video, right? You're just shooting to the music video, making sure you have the music video lined up, getting the shots, maybe even playing it in the background so that the artist can actually sing to it.
Yeah.
And that's another key too, is you want the talent to actually be projecting, because it looks weird if they mumble it or whisper it or just say it.
And go ahead. Ask us how we know that it looks weird and blatantly looks like they're lip syncing. Just ask us.
Yes. I'll ask you.
Oh, no. We've definitely done that before.
Yeah.
It looks weird.
Yeah. I tried it once on one of our really early lower gentry projects. And it was the master Russell Crowe's musical that he did. We did a rendition of One Day More.
Oh.
Yeah, and we uploaded that to YouTube.
Isn't that Les Mis?
Les Mis, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was Russell Crowe.
Was that Russell Crowe?
I think so. We're bad at movie knowledge, and I brought it up that time, so that's my fault.
But I think I mentioned last week that Les Mis was one of the few musicals they did record the sound live on set. I'm pretty confident in that.
Oh,
one.
okay.
They actually didn't use recorded tracks like Rent and so many other musical movies had done.
But that does help the performance.
Yeah.
To make sure that they're actually actively breathing and singing. And so that's our plan with this musical, is to have the temp track, which at this juncture will likely be a minimal amount of music.
Yeah.
And their vocals.
Yeah.
And then the rhythm to help us with the edit. And then that way you can take the temp track and edit while I work with Jesse and finish composing the music.
Yes. And Jesse is the composer that was on a few episodes ago.
Yes.
As well as the lead in this musical, which is incredibly generous of him to not only offer his talents all day with us on set, but also to
Yeah.
help out so much with all of the music. So
Yeah, and that's our plan moving forward. So that's how we're going to be able to kind of like separate the workflows essentially, because you're a very capable editor as well as you have some basic, like some solid understanding of After Effects, maybe not animation, but After Effects.
yeah,
And so you'll be able to do a lot of that, and I can obviously help with that too, but then it'll allow us to kind of divide and conquer this
Exactly.
post-production process, and hopefully with you editing, and then myself and Jesse and some other friends out there, Mike and John, and my brother.
yeah. Bradley
helped out as well.
Bradley's been hopping in a lot and is going to hop in and volunteer all day on set also. So
Yeah, hopefully it'll all work out smoothly so that post-production, it'll just be like, we'll just separate, meet up every once in a while. We can sync the final picture to the final music,
yeah,
and it'll go flawlessly.
absolutely.
We're going to run into issues, obviously, and we'll report that as it happens. So
But-
that's the plan as of
So
right now.
for now, basically, what you're saying is for anybody looking to do any project sort of like this or edit things to music, it's okay if the music really isn't there, if the instruments aren't in it yet. Like
Correct.
what you really need is just a click track
Yes.
giving you a solid tempo.
Yes.
If there are vocals, you should probably have those in there. And
If
then
possible,
like
yes.
your general melody and the way you want it to go.
Correct.
But other than that, you could do a lot of it in post.
Well, here's some things, because we want to talk about what we foresee as problems coming ahead. And one of the problems I see with us using temp music on set is when we go back into the studio and perform with a click track, there might be a little bit more of a swing to things. And so if you can, ideally, you want to have the music locked in before you go on set, have the performers familiar with it, have them familiar with the execution that they used, and have that synergistic experience of them working with other musicians and working on the track.
Fair.
We don't have that luxury. No. So I'm hoping that it's not going to show too much in the final music. However, I don't see how I don't know that will be as good as having had the time to do it. Like, the more time you have, it's obviously going to be better.
Yeah.
Period.
I think that's the number one lesson
Yeah.
we've already learned. is
We're
that-
working in a limited time frame. And so that's one of those balances in my mind is, okay, we have to get this done as good as possible. How do we leave ourselves open to fixing it? And then with us being basically in charge of all the aspects of the film edit themselves and
Yeah.
actors' performances, and me being able to give input on the shot list, how do we make sure that in all of these areas we're hitting things at a level that's decent to good?
And we lean a lot into inserts, cutaways, and reaction shots.
Yeah. Make sure that we have coverage so that we can so that it's visually interesting and the audio's good. And
Yeah.
is it going to be as good as if we had 2 months? Clearly not.
Probably not.
So,
Keeping in mind that technically we did have 2 months.
yeah. Well, we were traveling.
Yeah.
We were traveling to film festivals. Like, what are you going to do? You know, this is
Fair.
why it's good to schedule things out when you know you have a deadline.
If you know you have a
schedule
deadline
backwards.
and it's 4 months out,
Yeah.
yeah, you could start scheduling.
But
then.
nobody's going to push you to do something if it's your project. I think
Yeah.
that was Dylan said that on our group podcast recently from the Idaho Film Festival. So not Idaho Film Festival, Idaho Film Fair.
Yes.
But so nobody's going to push you. You're going to have to push yourself. And hey, we're in this spot where it's a little bit tighter, and we had the option to quit.
Yeah.
We definitely talked about like, hey, maybe we just don't do this.
It's an option.
And
we're not being, held hostage by this competition.
No, there's no reason to. But at the same time, based on the topic that we came up with, and then once you wrote all the lyrics, it was like, do we go ahead with this one or do we do something easier? Because it would have been very easy. We've both done so many shoots where it's two people having a conversation at a table.
Yeah.
And you can always lean into that. And that's a really good place to start with your films. If you can find two people that can act fairly decently and you can write some okay dialogue, or you want to practice writing dialogue for actors, just do it. And we talked about that being an option, but we thought, okay, well, this is politically relevant. we never know how long political relevance is going to last in this current political climate because it might take a 180 turn in like 3 days.
You never know.
So
what
we
was
thought,
big news might not be anymore.
yeah, we're like, now's the time to do it. Let's do it. And so we're gonna go for it.
Not to mention the fact that we have been podcasting for over a year now, talking about all the ways that you can make things happen and you can make do and you can. Yes, obviously, more time and more money is always great. But if we're going to be talking about, hey, this is how we fixed XYZ problem, well, let's create some new, really big problems.
Yeah, and we actually
you.
ran into a first one recently. But maybe before we do that, we'll share a cheap trick. Because we were talking about like cheap ways to
If we're
cheap ways to
talking
do
about
things.
cheap things, yes.
So this is from this week's featured filmmaker, and this is Kevin Mounce, and he says that a great way to shape light when you have nothing else, and it won't burn, is to use tinfoil.
Keep in mind, this should not be your first choice.
No, I mean if you can afford a cover,
Yeah,
that's nice. But sometimes you get into areas it might be helpful, like on some natural lights,
yeah.
something like that. To block it,
Just
like
to
let's
have
say
a little something.
yeah, you're shooting on an outside porch and you want to have that light there. And
I've been on film sets before where I've had to take old pairs of pants and cut them up to block out skylights because I did not have a flag to do that with. So I got to cut up old jeans and do that instead, and that worked mostly. But in this case, the number one thing about the tinfoil is that while it will not burn, it might smoke a little bit.
Oh, good point.
But hey, free atmosphere, but also maybe try to ventilate the space because I don't know if that's good to inhale for extended
probably
periods of time.
Probably
but
not.
either way,
Most people
it's
I
an
would
option.
imagine are using LEDs at this juncture anyway. So
Probably.
hopefully you don't have to worry about that. But yeah,
Yes.
tinfoil, just carry some with you with your gaff tape.
There you go.
So Victoria, do you want to talk a little bit about how we got this short cast so quickly? Because while I was working on the music,
Yes.
for a week, you were figuring out exactly what to do with the roles.
Yes.
And how did you handle that?
Desperation. No, I'm kidding.
Nice.
Actually, no.
Just be desperate. I don't know I think that's just like a zeitgeist for most filmmakers, crazy filmmakers.
We always embrace
so we're just
that.
going to assume that we're all very desperate to try to get a project across the
There we
finish line.
go. Like you think of the classic like poet or painter as the starving artist, but you think of the filmmaker as the desperate artist.
Yeah.
That's good. That sounds great. I'm
So
sure
how'd you
that's
get the
wonderful.
cast nailed
That
down?
was one that Jesse was intrigued enough about this to take on the lead role, which is a lot. It is
Yeah.
a lot of singing
Correct.
and a lot of wildly different music that goes through a lot of different. There's like some bluesy type stuff. There's some upbeat kind of folksy type stuff. There's a couple like hip hop type numbers. There's
Yeah.
a lot in this 10-minute musical because if you're going to swing for the fences, I mean, come on, go
Yeah.
big or go home. Anyway.
So it's going to be 4 characters that are one main character, that's Jesse.
There's one main character and one main protagonist, one
Yeah.
main antagonist, and then 3 additional party members.
Yes, and this is like a D&D musical that's happening in this protagonist fantasy universe.
Yes.
And we basically reached out to Jesse to play the main character.
Yes, and thankfully he said yes.
Yes, and he recently went from, well, he still plays music live all the time, but he was cast locally in as an extra or an ensemble member in a musical. And so he
Yes.
did get a little bit of experience there.
He did.
So
And he
we weren't-
seemed okay with it and he seemed intrigued by it. So this is a good opportunity for him to actually get something out of it, too.
And once we got that piece in place where we knew a vast majority of the vocals are going to fall on his shoulders,
Yes.
then you started to reach out to people.
I did. And I have directed a couple musicals in town and have the luxury of being able to leverage those people
Yeah.
since I've worked with them before, and thankfully they were relatively, at least especially the second one, was a really good cast experience, and especially because it was such a small cast, you all bond really closely when you're working so
Yeah.
closely on a show for 3-4 months that you become friends as well. So when I pitched this to a lot of them, that was thankfully well received.
Yeah.
So that went well. Casting. anybody of color, like a POC in Idaho, is always kind of a challenge, especially when they also need to be comfortable singing in front of people.
Yeah.
So we do have one cast member that fits that type, and that one was definitely more of a struggle, and we had to put out kind of a rush casting call locally here.
Yeah, which you actually got that. You got some responses within a couple days.
Yes, thankfully.
And how did you make a post that got people's attention? Because I thought this was really interesting. For me, I would try to utilize all of my own personal connections.
Oh, I definitely did. But apparently this weekend is a big travel weekend for people, so there were not a lot of people in town this coming weekend.
Yeah.
So
obviously we're in a small town.
Yes.
Smaller town, smaller city, I guess, in the Boise area. And finding people that want to work for little to nothing.
Yeah.
And also finding a variety of different actors, especially when this competition is going on and a lot of other people are filming these same weekends.
Yeah.
Our options get slim.
And I am going to say, I think that is the hardest part about casting a project like this, is not necessarily finding the talent, because thankfully we are lucky to have a ridiculously talented group in Idaho, the Boise metropolitan area.
Yeah.
We have a lot of talent here, and that's amazing. I think the hardest part of casting is having to look an actor directly in the eye and say, okay, now will you do this for pizza?
Yeah, for sure.
Because the answer should be no.
Yeah.
But for some reason, everybody's nice and is willing to say yes sometimes.
Yeah. And I do want to point out to everybody that for myself, it's been over 10 years of doing creative projects here in the Boise community and working with people and not necessarily being all that concerned with a paycheck.
Yeah.
And you do, the more work that you do art for the sake of art, you're going to be able to find those people.
Yeah.
I would imagine, regardless of the size of the city.
It's true. And you find the people that kind of get you. Because that's another thing that was really challenging about this particular project, is that, and I understand a lot of projects will feel this way, but one thing that was really difficult about this particular script is making a political satire in a gaming world, which means two things. One, we have to convey the game world in a way that does service to the gamers.
Yes.
Because I know enough about D&D to get myself in trouble, and I know that other D&D players would definitely know if something was horribly, horribly wrong. And we had to kind of make some shortcuts to make some words rhyme, and that's fine. We made it work. But the other thing is that as a political satire, the goal is for it to be funny.
Yeah.
And comedy is so subjective.
True.
So I think that that's also very difficult to throw a comedy musical script with very specific world mechanics out to a person and be like, I hope this makes you laugh too.
Yeah, which we, some people that we sent the script to just didn't get back to us.
No,
and
so we have
okay.
to decide, did they ghost us because of who we are or because of what the script is?
Yeah, that's true. Well, the people that got back to me initially and then didn't get back to me later on. So, but you never know what's going on.
No.
People could get busy. Can you go back to the post that you made on social media?
Yeah. So because we are a smaller, rather tight-knit community, the majority of the actors and filmmakers and just general film talent exists in Facebook groups here.
Yeah.
In a larger market, you're probably going to go to Backstage or Actors Access, or nobody goes to Casting Calls from America anymore, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, you're going to go to those particular places and find people. When it's not a paid gig, I assume it's more difficult, but you have those routes and those options. It's not as common to do that here. It's more common to go to Facebook. And unfortunately, Facebook is awful. It's just awful.
It is.
This is going to get cut into a reel that gets posted onto Facebook, and then Facebook is going to hate me even more. And you know what? That's fine. I hate you too, Meta. Anyway, when you're posting into a Facebook group, you need an image of some sort to kind of get people's attention, because otherwise, if it's just a big block of text, it's going to get lost because it's not visually appealing. And if too many people skim over it and don't pay attention to it, and you aren't very active in that group especially, it's just going to get ignored and buried, and nobody's going to see it. And your casting notice isn't going to do you a lot of good. So we also managed to basically create the poster art.
By we, she means you did.
It was a stock photo and a font that I had because I actually did the projections for a D&D musical.
Oh.
Funny enough.
Perfect.
Or no, it's not a musical. It's a play.
Yeah.
She
D&D.
Kills Monsters is not a musical.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes. And so I already had a lot of like dragony looking medieval style fonts and some assets there. So that was kind of nice to just be able to throw that together. And based on our timeline, I don't know if we're going to have time to change it. So that might just be the poster.
Well, 2 birds, 1 stone. And like you said, I didn't realize that a lot of times casting notice will get buried on social media if they don't have the right images. And it's nice that you have some graphic design background to be able to make something that looks professional. And that's one of those things too. Me personally, I do feel like that has something that has been ignored, that I ignore on my own portfolio, is branding.
Oh,
it's kind of one of those things, like the project should speak for itself. The script should just speak for itself. However, you can't even get most people to read a 10-page script unless they have some sort of...
They need to have a tie to it.
Some sort of push. Like, I'm going to actually be interested in this. This might be worth my time, right? Because we get a lot of scripts.
We do.
And I'm sorry if I haven't read your script yet. I really want to read everybody's scripts, but I don't have 2 hours.
But maybe ask us after 18 days from now.
Yeah. You know, and having written scripts or been on the writing table and working with my brother as he writes scripts, it's one of those things when we send it out, I don't think I was appreciative enough of the people who read those scripts.
Yeah.
So if you've ever read one of the scripts that I've been listed on as like collaborating on the story, thank you so much for reading it, because we get inundated with them. And so if you have a actor that you do, which we did, want to have them review the script first, because not everybody wants to be associated with something that might have a little bit of a political bent right now.
Yeah.
Because we're all freaking sick of it.
And
in
that's
the United
valid.
States.
And that's valid. There is nothing wrong with being like,
Mm-hmm.
I really don't want to do something political.
But on the other hand, some people are very excited about the opportunity of being on camera.
Yeah.
And they will say yes. And then when you get them the script, they might back out. So it's always really important, especially if you're working on a volunteer basis, to be completely 100% transparent.
Yeah.
So that you're getting the people that are excited about it, because that will show up. Hopefully, we'll find out on ours, but that does show up on the screen usually.
Usually.
In my
you can
experience.
kind of tell if the enthusiasm is or isn't there.
Yeah.
But you also run the risk of no-shows, right?
Yeah.
If you get somebody that reads a script or agrees to do something but doesn't read the script,
Yeah.
and then a day or two before they read it and they're like, oh no, I don't want to do this.
And we get a lot of the people that apply for Filmmaker of the Week that have stories of no-shows.
Yeah.
And it
comes up a lot.
It does happen. We've had experiences. I know I've had experiences on set. I'm sure you've had experiences on set where someone doesn't show up. And it's one of those things that you have to learn how to communicate ahead of time as much as possible to prevent that from happening. I'm not concerned about anyone not showing up when we film on Saturday. However, stuff does happen. People
Things come up.
People can get sick, and it's one of those things we'll adjust.
Yeah, we'll
when
make
that
it
happens.
work. And
You can't plan for every single contingency.
no, you want to, but there's just no way.
Some things you have to just react to.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the movie we watched that we want to use for some inspiration on this?
Yeah, actually, because we've had the goal to sit down and actually watch a film that is applicable to what we're sort of trying to do. So this time we chose Once from 2007,
Yes.
written and directed by John Carney.
Yep. The budget was $150,000. The box office return was $23.3 million.
Oh, so not that successful.
Pretty good return. Pretty good return monetarily there. So this is kind of a Irish mumblecore movie is how I would describe it.
Yeah.
And it's 2007, so it's kind of right in that whole
I feel like that is
era.
mumblecore era.
For sure. The difference between this one is that they did shoot it kind of like a music video. So there are several scenes where they clearly mic'd these musicians to be able to play. There's a scene with the 2 quasi love interests at a music shop. One's playing piano, one's playing guitar. They're singing. They just go through the whole song. They play the whole song. There's a really cool scene with the main actress who's named Girl. That's literally how they're credited. There's guy and girl, so they don't actually have names. So
but they did that so well. No, at no point in the movie did I even become aware of the fact I didn't know their names. Mm-hmm. I thought that was well done.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So there's a really cool shot of the lead guy wants girl to play help him with his compositions. There's a really cool scene where she puts headphones on and a CD player and then walks out of this convenience store, bodega, and then it just transitions from like in-ear music to full music, and she's singing along with it. Really cool. And then like a studio recording session and a few other ones.
Yeah.
And I thought that was an interesting way to make a feature film because I've shot live music video before, and to me, that would be a very easy way to fill like 5 to 8 minutes of film time.
Maybe this started as a short film and they're like, wait a minute, what if we actually played the songs and now it's a feature?
I shouldn't say that that it's easy, quote unquote, but they actually cast real musicians for this film. And so I would imagine that they would rehearse it. It would take a lot of pre-production to do that. Yeah. But then once they have the pieces down, they shot it look like multicam. And so you get a couple cameras set up. I do want to point out too that the camera that they used was a Sony HVR Z1E. It was a mini DV. They shot it in 1080p. It looks
like it.
It looks like a prosumer movie.
But
that was very run and gun. And one of the tricks they used was to use max zoom, and they filmed it in Dublin without any film permits. So they just laved up the talent, used max zoom, and had them perform, and people around them didn't know that they were in a movie.
Which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Risky.
Very risky.
Very risky, but really cool. And I will say the way that they built the story, like music was the thing kind of tying them all together. And obviously it definitely helped that they had professional musicians who sounded really good. They just sound good. It was a really beautiful movie about kind of, acceptance and being seen for your art and exploring kind of, are you valuable enough with or without your art? Or are they tied or are they not? And, there was a lot of like parental approval stuff and, exes and what's worth pursuing, your career, your love life. And I don't know.
It was kind of mid-aughts, like artistic guy struggling with a girl that he was in love with and doesn't know what to do with his life. I mean, if you've seen Garden State, it was kind of similar vibe to that.
I definitely liked it more than Garden State.
It was better than Garden State.
I liked it more than Garden State.
But what did you learn from watching that you think you want to apply to the musical that we're going to be filming in the next 7 days?
I think we should just grab a mini DV camera and go for it. I still have my old one.
Oh, nice.
I think we should just lean into
some dead pixels
D&D.
in there, probably.
Yeah. Oh, there's probably more dead ones than live ones at this point.
We'll just make it a creative choice.
It's not 1080p anymore.
I went through the pawn
500.
shop and I found the one with the exact right dead pixels, and I love this one.
This one's it. This is the one. No,
See, you can always say something is a creative choice, even if it's not. Sorry.
Make it work.
For anyone that was complaining about 28 days later, I don't know. I'm incredulous.
I think realistically, the best thing to take from it is that the music is so important, because I think I spent a lot of time really fretting with the lyrics. And even after you started writing a lot of the music, then I was like, no, now we have to go back and rework the lyrics because the story just isn't there and the story just isn't good enough.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that actually matters.
Yeah, that's what I got from that movie too, is that Once doesn't really have a story at all. It's very and then-y.
I still definitely want to have a story.
Oh no, we're gonna. But as far as this movie Once won an Academy Award for Best Song,
Best Original Song.
Yes, Best Original Song.
Yes,
which it beat out.
It beat out Enchanted, which blew my mind. That is Alan Menken. That is the genius that brought you Little Shop of Horrors and Little Mermaid and and you can tell in a few of the songs that there's definitely like only Alan Menken would get away with ripping off Little Mermaid quite that hard for some of his other songs. But he wrote it.
They also were nominated for 3 songs.
They were nominated.
So I think it split the vote.
But
this is why you never vote independent. Just kidding.
Oh my God, this isn't the satire, Chuck.
Maybe we can get like 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats to run for office, and then the independent will win. All right, so
okay.
Let's.
So the song Falling Slowly, though, it still exists, is a really beautiful song,
Yeah.
but it wasn't really about the lyrics. It was about the feeling behind them, a lot of the composition of it. It just sounded really good. So then getting to go into a recording studio with a bunch of your musician friends and work through a lot of this was really cool to watch. If you ever get a chance to watch like a music creation and ideation session, do it, because I don't speak music, and that was so cool. That was the most interesting thing I'd seen in so long. Just a whole other language building a song, and then it's a song, and it actually sounds like music, not just, me trying to rap sing in my head and probably listen to too much Hamilton before writing half of this, but that's fine. Like, it was really, really cool. So that was amazing.
Thanks. So Alone, or excuse me, not Alone, but Once.
I mean, that could have been like maybe parentheticals Alone.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But Once, that's great. I got the same thing out of that. Like, the plot didn't really matter in that movie that much. And so we do want to make sure on ours that the music's as good as it can possibly be, because that'll carry it a very long way.
It will. That's going to do more for it.
And by I say very little plot in Once, like really there isn't one.
The plot seems to be struggling musician needs lyricist to record album, which they do.
And when I talk about plot, I define like an event happens because of a previous event. And I mean,
this felt more like a classified ad.
Yeah. It was just a bunch of random things happened together, and then they strung it along. They kind of like laced it with music, and that was the fabric of the film, and still worth watching. I thought it was really cool.
It was really cool.
Yeah. So I think that's...
And there's a shot at the very end that I'm still not 100% sure how they did with a mini DV camera.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Like, I assume they had somebody in a cherry picker, because there's no way it was a jib. I don't know how they did it. But if you watch it and you make it to the end and you know how they got that shot, let us know.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
I think it was just like they commandeered somebody working on an electrical line.
I think so. It was just a cherry picker, and they just were like, quick, you can drive this, right?
They're on their lunch break. Let's go. That'd be pretty cool. All right. Shall we talk about the featured filmmaker of the week?
I think so. This week we have Kevin Mounce, who's been making movies since he was 6, which is impressive.
Yep. And he realized at 13 you can make a career of it, so he has a great story about making the most of things. When filming a scene for his first feature film, the main talent was running through the woods, slid, fell, wiped out hard, but he was able to track the camera movement flawlessly to make it look intentional, and it was captured well enough that it stayed in the final product. So always be rolling, especially on very dangerous shots, because you never know what you might get.
You never know. Hopefully you've done some stunt choreo in practice too.
And
that helps.
If it's not a good movie, snuff films, those always sell, I'm pretty sure. So
there's only one place those sell, and that is the dark web.
Oh, right on. I don't know what they go for. So if you're any of you filmmakers out there making money in some way that we don't know.
What? Chase that dollar. You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
So Kevin actually has a quote that I really, really loved. So with filmmaking, there are always barriers and obstacles to overcome. If it was easy, everyone would do it. We do it because of the obstacles. And I just love that idea that it's not filmmakers pursuing their passion in spite of the obstacles, but it's actually, no, those challenges and that really euphoric, I conquered this feeling is exactly why we do it. I just really liked that perspective. I thought it was fun.
Yeah, that makes sense. It feels good. Like, never ran a marathon before, but maybe filmmakers can be compared to marathon runners. Right?
I would never compare myself to a marathon. If you're a runner.
Triathlete.
You're a runner.
The triathlete. It's like you do it for the challenge, not because while it's happening, it's the most enjoyable thing. But a lot of times you get the flow state and you see the obstacles ahead of you and you're like, this is my chance.
This is it.
To
my
figure
time
things
to
out.
shine. My time to shine.
And we'll keep you posted on how the filming actually goes.
Yeah.
The next time we record.
So if you're not subscribed here
Yeah.
at whatever listening platform that you're on, make sure that you do so you can keep posted on this.
Yeah.
If you want to see the final film, no matter how it turns out, make sure you're subscribed to our newsletter, which you can do in the show notes. There'll be a link there.
Yeah, once it's finished, we're gonna share it to our newsletter subscribers so you can have a private screener link, get a sneak peek, let us know what you think.
Yeah.
And let us know if we should send it out to more film festivals or
let us know
if we
if
just
you
lay
think,
it to rest.
Yeah, just let that one go. It's okay. Not every project has to be a winner, and that's okay too.
No, but the more you have, the more shots you take,
That's it.
the more chances. I don't remember what the quote is, but it was
I don't
Michael
know.
Scott. You can look it up.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It wasn't the shot. You miss every shot you take from Wayne Gretzky. And then also. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
There we go. And then, and if you want to follow along live as we go, then make sure you're subscribed on social because we're going to be posting all the in the moment up to date episode in the moment up to date movie making chaos, if you will. Whereas all our podcast episodes are going to have a week delay. So keep that in mind.
We're right up to date on social media. So, all right, shall we succinctly say farewell?
I think so.
Bye.
Bye.